Okay, for this demo, we're going to be looking at using Visual Studio with a SQL Server project to deploy and build a SqlPool data warehouse. Okay, so I'm going to open up Visual Studio 2019 Enterprise Edition. SQL projects are also compatible with Azure Data Studio as well, but I'm just kind of using this, right? Open up a solution that has a SQL Data project in it, and in here I've got my tables, my views, my stored procs, and everything that makes up my schema that is my starter data warehouse. Okay, so going to the menu, I can build, and whereas a .NET application might compile and give me a DLL, this gives me a DAC pack, right? So a DAC pack is like a zip file that has all the create statements to create my tables, views, stored procs, schemas, and everything that makes it up. So to deploy this to my empty SQL pool, I can right click and go publish, edit a connection string that points to the environment, and I've got a key and a parameter. So what name do I want the master file? And I go to the advanced and tell it to not block if a data loss occurs. Okay. I can also tell it to ignore certain things, like I don't want to deploy database roles and users is a very common thing. One thing I wish this program had is the ability to sort of save kind of preferences a bit more. I can then either generate that script, so give me a script that I can run at a later date, a deployment script. If I'm really brave, I can just click publish, and it will do that, and it will do the deployment for me. Okay, so that's running away, and what that's doing is now deploying the artifacts to my SQLDB. Now, I suppose we might as well chat about DevOps while that's running. So I'm just going to close all these windows, and we should be able to see the items being created. So let's see. Disconnect here is. Go to tables, refresh, and items not created yet. Oh, right, it's still creating the kind of preview. Now that DAC pack is a fundamental component that if you want to get automated deployments for your SQL dedicated pool, you're going to need to have a DAC pack. And then within the DevOps environment pipelines, you can then target a different environment like your test and your prod, and it'll automatically apply the schema changes to make them the same as the kind of DAC pack. So that's how to do automated deployments. Now there's some videos. A great guy in the community called Kevin Chant has done a lot of blogs and videos about exactly that and how to do automated testing. So there is various SQL unit testing frameworks, or you can just use sort of Visual Studio unit tests as well to do unit testing. So you can get to the point where you can script out the creation of the test environment, the applying of the schema, and then the running of unit tests as well. So you can kind of apply kind of modern kind of best practices to SqlPool if you have the time and the money. Okay, so now let's see how that got on. Oh, it did generate an error, so I might have to run it again. So I click on script and look at the error. Alter table only allows column to add. Right, so a classic thing. Sometimes the change that has to be applied is impossible because I've told it to add a column that has a non-nullable column, but the existing table doesn't have any values for that. So it's impossible, right? So what'll happen is it'll crash out and it'll be, no, I can't do that, right? So what I've needed to do is either the column I added should have been a nullable column. In my case, I'm just going to delete the table so that when it applies the schema change skip, it can have a bit more. In fact, I'm just on the safe side. I'm just going to Object Explorer details, tables. I'm just going to delete those other tables and just got to recreate them. Right, let's try that again. So right click, publish, give me a connection string, put in a parameter for what the name of the master database is, and publish. All right, hopefully I actually do it this time around. So it's going to create the script. And once that happens, that will contain all of the DDL, and then I'll start to see those artifacts appear in my SqlPool over here in Management Studio. Okay, so that's running away. That's creating the object now. I can see the objects appearing. It's creating indexes, everything that kind of makes up my full SqlPool. Now there is a command line utility called SqlPackage that I can run to target an existing SqlPool, and it will reverse engineer the kind of DAC pack. So if you're not using a SQL project, but you still want to do a DevOps deployment, you can use the SQL package to kind of bridge that gap. Deployment successful. Another fantastic tool is there's a schema comparison tool. So I can go, I want to compare the code in the project to the code in the live dev environment. And what it does is it will compare all the objects, and I can swap it around and say, compare what's in that environment to what's in my source code, and then I can only bring in all of the changes if I want to, right? So SQL Compare is a tool that we use a lot, right? Because when we got environments and, checking if there's any drift, after we've kind of done a deployment, how do we validate that all the schemas are in sync? Schema Compare tool, right? That's our friend, right? So we very much rely on that. Anyway, that's my deployment complete. And now we've got our starter data warehouse, right? So it's got config tables for kind of metadata and some audit tables for lineage and logging, and a couple of staging tables.